it brought on a lot of different discomforts to be able to lean on the blindness skills I had recently learned to, stay in a Greyhound station overnight. There was a lot of discomfort there. Welcome one, welcome all, welcome back to the Speaker Vision podcast. But if this is your first time, hello, how's it going? My name is Tariq Williams, and this is your space for everything empowerment. Let's go. Let's get into it. We're bringing energy. I got energy. You have energy. You want to listen? I have something to say. Let's get it. So, in this episode, the thing is, we are going to dissect, kind of talk about two specific words here, but ultimately, the one thing you need to know about both of them. You saw the title, you heard the title, someone told you about the title. Discomfort and disagreement. Disagreement and discomfort. Two Ds. We are talking about disagreement and discomfort. Should I say it again? No, because you heard it a couple times now and you already saw it in the title. So, here's the situation. These two words are something that people attempt to avoid. These two words are something that people run away from, avoid, hide from, try to, by any means necessary, don't tolerate, okay? And I've always wondered, where does the fear for these words come from? And here's the thought process. Truly, people don't know what they don't know. It's an unknown, okay? If I don't know how to function as a deaf person, it's something that I don't know. So it's an unknown. I don't know how to do that. So there might be some fear there. However, I do know how to function as a blind person or cross streets as a blind person. So there's not as much fear there, right? Now, once upon a time, I got asked a question and it said, Tariq, what is the worst thing that could possibly happen? Basically, or something along those lines. Losing vision, becoming blind, becoming deaf, not being able to hear, or maybe loss of limb, something along those lines. Like, what sensory thing is the worst to happen? Okay. And I had to think for a second, because obviously this person was asking me this question because I was going through blindness, right? I am blind. That's why that's why this person was asking me this question. So I decided to answer. I was at a networking event. I wasn't going to not answer, but I always am interested in being able to understand other people's perspectives. And it's interesting when you get a question that you're not expecting, because you truly get your authentic response. But yet I do like to think through things. But I didn't think through this one, and my answer hasn't changed since. What's the worst thing that could possibly happen out of all those things? Ultimately, it's the one that you're not going through. Because the one that you're not going through is the one that you know nothing about. It's the unknown. I have never had to go through some of these different things. So ultimately, I don't know the skills to be able to get through some of these certain things. Okay. I don't know them. Right. So that's where that fear comes in. That's where some discomfort comes in. Okay. When it comes to disagreement, people fear disagreement because they think about what it might lead to. They think that disagreement leads to altercation. They believe that disagreement leads to conflict. We believe that disagreement leads to no solution. Okay? I think there's no other story to bring up. Like, that is just a fact. I believe that is what people believe. That's why they avoid these different situations. Like, I know people that ultimately just don't even like discussion. Like, the idea, the opportunity for any type of disagreement to happen is like not a thing that they are willing to take part in. And this is not hyperbole. This is a fact. Some people truly do not like discussion for that reason. And When we evolve this discussion here, and we're talking about disagreement and discomfort, they come together in a really unique way. But let me tell you all little bit of a story here. Now, so when I was going to Louisiana for my blindness training, there came a part in time where the state of Pennsylvania, vocational rehabilitation, they fund for people with disabilities to be able to get the resources they need to be successful, right? No matter what the disability is, okay? So you can go to your local state if you have some type of disability, to refer yourself, do a referral to the disability in the state for Pennsylvania, it was the Bureau of Blindness and Visual Services, okay? For Arizona, it's, ultimately it's all vocational rehabilitation. Okay. Getting a job, you get you rehabilitized because I'm blind. All right. But the fact of the matter is, any state has this. So if you don't know and you have a disability and you want a resource, it might take a little bit because things in government state might take a little while, but it's a resource that's out there. So they were funding for me to go to Louisiana. I was there for a bit. I came back. I needed to go back. The state didn't want to fund for me to go back. Okay. We had a disagreement. All right. We had a disagreement because I felt the education that I was getting in Louisiana as a blind person, it was giving me opportunities that I didn't know ever existed. I was able to get training and learn from mentors, other blind people, people who truly believed in other blind people and what that looked like. And for the first time in my life, I thought my potential as a blind, because at this point in time, I've been blind now for about 4 or 5 years at that point in time in my life. And so I'm sitting here thinking, like, as a blind person, my ultimate potential is a five. Scale from 1 to 10, my ultimate potential is a five, but I'll be cool with 3 or 4 because I'm blind and I don't know any other blind people. When I went to Louisiana and met other blind people, that five skyrocketed to 55 because I recognized that the only person holding me back was Tariq. But once again, I didn't know what I didn't know. So after a lot of advocacy and having conversation with the state of Pennsylvania, I was eventually able to make it back to Louisiana. See, I knew what I needed to be successful. We had a disagreement, but I had to advocate for myself and say, hey, no, this is what I need. This is what I need to be the best version of myself. So who are you? You don't know me. Okay. Well, they did know me, but I knew what I needed. When you see what your potential could possibly look like, this isn't necessarily what this episode is about, but here's what you need to understand. What this is about, what the podcast is about. When you see what your potential could possibly look like, you protect it and you don't let anybody take that away from you. Because we understand here that potential is only unachieved greatness. But there will come times where other people are going to combat that greatness. People are going to let you stay in that status quo area. They're going to say, oh, you don't need X because somebody else didn't need X. Well, they're not somebody else. They're not me. So I fought my way to go back to Louisiana. Another story. So as I'm learning different skills as a blind person and I'm learning how to navigate life as a blind person, when I was living in Louisiana, in my own apartment, doing my thing, right? It was my grandmother. It was my grandmother's 80th birthday. And my family, my brother, my mom, they were all traveling to Trinidad to be able to go see her. My mom goes, Tariq, you have to get there. I'm like, I'm going to be there. Truth of the matter is, if you want to do something, you go ahead and do it. And the people who say, oh, I didn't have time, people who don't want to do something, they don't do it. They will make the time. So the relationship, the friendship, the whatever you got going on, if they're not treating you right, if they're not doing the thing, they're choosing that. Because somebody, if they want to treat you right, they will. And if they don't, they won't. Let me repeat that again for the people in the back. If somebody wants to treat you right, they will. And if they don't want to treat you right, they won't. That's not what this episode is about. I digress. We'll come back to it. So, it was my grandmother's 80th birthday. And I'm in northern Louisiana. I got a flight of Monroe Airport. Okay. I'm looking at the flights from Monroe Airport to Trinidad and Tobago. We are looking at the cheapest flight in the thousands. Okay. We are looking at the cheapest flight in the thousands. Okay. That wasn't an option. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, what's the next plan? Because I'm gonna be there, right? Once again, this was something that I wanted to do. I was going to do. I was gonna be there for my grandmother, the person who was there for me every time I, got off the bus. Took me to the bus stop, took care of me when my parents were at work. The person who was always there. So I was gonna be there for this celebration. Nothing was gonna stop me from getting there. Well, at this point, $1,000 was stopping me, but but I had to be a problem solver. Think about what was going to be next. Okay. I'm feeling very discomfortable. Oh, discomfortable? That's not a word. Uncomfortable. Discomfort for the episode. Uncomfortable is what we're looking for. But we're using discomfort for this conversation. Discomfortable. Um, anyways, nothing was going to stop me from getting there. Problem solver. Okay, cool. I can take the bus from Louisiana, from Northern Louisiana, because it said my connection was either in Dallas or Houston. I looked at those flights from $1,000 down to 400, 400. Now we're actually having a conversation, American Airlines. All right. We weren't having a conversation before. We weren't even in the same area code. Now we can have a conversation about what it looks like. Okay. So I was like, okay, done. Like I made a decision pretty quickly. I was like, all right, done. This is what I'm doing. I don't know how. I don't know what the situation is, but done. That's what I'm doing. So I got my ticket from Houston, Texas to Trinidad and Tobago. Okay. The Greyhound bus. Now, this is not necessarily something that I recommend that other people do. Um, but you do what you got to do. Okay. Stay safe. All right. Always be safe. Take care of yourself. Don't necessarily recommend this. So this is my disclaimer. I don't recommend that people do this. So the flight from Trinidad and Tobago left on Saturday at 1:32 p.m. out of Houston Airport. Okay? I think that's George Bush, I think. Out of Houston, left at 1:32 p.m. Okay? The Greyhound, and so it's international. So you want to get there at least 2, 3 hours 3 hours in advance because of customs and all that good stuff. All right. I look at the bus times. No bus gets Tariq to Houston that leaves on Saturday by 10 o'clock. So what time does what bus leaves and goes to Houston that I need? The bus leaves Ruston, Louisiana at 5:32 p.m. on Friday. So what I had to do was I had to get to the bus stop. It's not a bus station, it's definitely a bus stop. I had to get to the bus stop in Ruston, Louisiana at 5:32 p.m. And then I got on that bus and I took it to Shreveport. And then from Shreveport, had a little bit of layover from Shreveport, Louisiana, and then took it to Houston. Tariq got to Houston at the precious time of 2:35 a.m. Now, Greyhound bus station may not be the place that you want to be at 2:35 a.m. And it was cold. It was pretty cold because we're in December. It was cold. Should have planned better. Because this Greyhound station was definitely not completely indoors. And so at 2:35 a.m., I am at the Greyhound station. And I'm like, okay, well, the station's getting ready to close. What do I do? Tariq stayed. This is crazy. I stayed in the Grey, and you got to keep in mind, believing in myself. And this sounds crazy for anyone. It probably sounds even more insane if you're a blind person, but you just, once again, you do what you gotta do. Okay. So I ended up staying in the Greyhound station overnight. There was somebody working one of the restaurant areas, and he was working there by himself, like a little bit of like a corner store at the Greyhound station area, and ended up talking to him for a while and stayed in that back area for a bit, right? I don't remember his name. He was a cool dude. He was a boxer. Maybe it was Canelo Alvarez. Probably not. I don't know. I don't remember his name, but he was a cool dude. Him and we talked, and I stayed in the Greyhound station overnight. And at 7, 8 a.m., I got my directions. I hopped on the city bus and took the city bus directly to the airport. Took a city bus, got there directly from the airport, got to the airport, and then got on my flight to Trinidad. So, and then from 1:32, it was about I think it was about a 4 hour flight or so, 4 or 5 hour flight or so from Houston to Trinidad. So then it was probably like 9, 10 o'clock by the time I got to Trinidad and went through all the customs again. And after that, took care of whatever else, got my luggage, all those different things. And, it really made me put a lot of my non-visual skills I had been learning to the test. I had only been going through this training for some time at that point, and I had went through the training and now I was in the master's program. And it brought on a lot of different discomforts. To be able to lean on the blindness skills I had recently learned to, stay in a Greyhound station overnight, there was a lot of discomfort there. Okay. Now, why do I tell you all both these two stories? The one, me getting my training in Louisiana and the disagreement I had with the state of Pennsylvania, and the discomfort that I had in being able to travel an overnight trip and it's basically travel for a day, 2 days, basically, to get to Trinidad for the celebration for my grandmother's 80th birthday. What I can tell you is this. I was thinking about, because I didn't want to over plan for the podcast episode, but what I can tell you is that those are probably that is one disagreement and a certain level of discomfort, no doubt about. Two stories that I will never forget. They were the first things that popped into my head. And I'll tell you what, I'll never forget them, but ultimately, I'll never forget the growth I had because of both of those situations. See, what we don't understand, we fear we fear disagreement, we fear discomfort, but ultimately that is the foundation of some true unbreakable growth. Me advocating to get back to Louisiana for the training that I needed as a newly blind person showed me that I can advocate for myself and that I deserve the education to become successful and be the person I am today. Going through that discomfort to be able to travel as a blind person and be at a Greyhound station, which I don't recommend at 2:30 a.m., but being able to go through that discomfort and travel over a day and a half or so to push myself to a limit that I didn't even think existed. I didn't even know that it was ridiculous until I was going through it. And I was like, wow, I'm really doing this. But nothing was going to stop me from getting there. But that discomfort, that travel experience, nobody can take that away from me. So when I think about a lot of my different moments of growth, sure, I could have told you today about the discomfort of not studying for a test in college. I definitely could have told you about that. However, less exciting, but not as memorable. I'm not going to those two experiences were wild. So when we think about disagreement and people who you thought believed in you to go where you needed to go to, and yet they're not letting you go to the place that you feel like you need to get this growth from, that really starts to make you think. And when you have that discomfort to travel to a place you've never been to and do something that most people probably aren't going to do, it really makes you think. I'm telling you right now, we fear disagreement, we fear discomfort, but it is the foundation of some true, unbreakable growth. When you overcome something that is uncomfortable, that you get some discomfort from, nobody can take that away from you. When you have a disagreement with someone, that is truly a possibility for an evolutionary conversation. See, people are going to try to divide when there's disagreement. Try to create conflict when there's disagreement. You know, this might not be the most popular thing to talk about right now. You know, we coming up across some politics stuff in the United States right now, and this is not a political podcast. But what I will tell you is that when we talk about disagreement, you have an opportunity to come together and have a conversation with someone and see what it looks like for us to both evolve. We got to think about, when it comes to disagreements, we need to think about what it looks like, because we have a common goal, but yet we want to be divided. How about we have a conversation and come together so that we could put our minds together and find a better solution? Don't be focused on division. Be focused on unity. Because the disagreement will continue to evolve. The disagreements that we possibly have between other people and ourselves, etc., can evolve to create the better solution, the better talking point, the better possibility, the better goal, the better dream, the true growth, the discomfort. You know, even if you're working out, like, you're going to get sore. That's going to be uncomfortable. You got to work through that to get to where you want to be. So I'm telling you today, don't be afraid of your growth. Don't be afraid of it. Actually, you know what? Let me change that up. Because you might be afraid. I think being afraid and having some fear is part of being human. Anybody who tells you that they have no fear at all, we need to have a conversation. Because people don't know what they don't know. So unless you know everything, I don't know what you're talking about. Because, you know, we don't know what we don't know. So there might be some discomfort. But that's okay. If you're afraid of it, fine. If you're not, whatever. But ultimately, you can be afraid of it. You can hate, you could be afraid of disagreement. You can hate discomfort. You could want to, you could want to dislike it more than anybody in the world. But don't run away from it. Go through it. Because the true growth, the unbreakable growth that you are seeking, is waiting for you to go through it. It's at the other side of the door. It's at the other side of the disagreement. It's at the other side of the discomfort. So what are you waiting for? The person stopping you is you. Don't run away. Run through it. Let's get it. Thank you for listening to the Speak Your Vision podcast. You know what we do here. This is your space for everything empowerment. So when it comes to discomfort, when it comes to disagreement, we run through it. We make it happen. We make true unbreakable growth. Let's get it. Vision.